During our past videos in this series, we've gone over the houses and the meanings of the houses, also the meanings of the planets. Now it's time to consider how to put together the house lords, the combinations of house lords. So oftentimes we get questions about what does it mean when the third house lord is in conjunction with the fourth house lord, or the fifth house lord is in the 10th house? Or what does it mean if there are no planets in any houses? Well, the planet that doesn't have any houses in it, it's still going to have a lord, and that lord is going to go somewhere. So we look at the houses as the field of your life that house represents, such as the 10th house dealing with career and status, 5th house dealing with children, creativity, speculative investments, mantras, 2nd house dealing with how we provide for ourselves, our resources that are available to us in early childhood. But all these things we've gone over in past videos. So you can go back through this channel and this series to look at each house individually. And you want to do this. You want to take notes and memorize the indications of the houses. That way, when you see house lords coming together, you don't necessarily have to rely on a book or a text to tell you what it means. You get a sense of what it means. But anyway, going back to the idea of not having any planets in a house. Well, let's say that the 12th house doesn't have anything in it. And we'll just use the idea of the 12th house representing expenses and losses. So we want to know, well, if there's nothing in the 12th house, does that mean we're not going to have any expenses and losses? Not necessarily. We need to look to see where the 12th house lord goes. So I've often seen in charts that whenever the 12th house lord goes into the 3rd house, well, maybe peers or siblings will cause expenses and losses. Or if the 12th house lord goes into the 5th house, children. 10th house lord into the 12th house, oftentimes there can be more expenses and losses in regards to status and maintaining reputation. So when there's no planets in a house, that's okay. We need to see who rules that house, who is the house lord, and where does that house lord go. Now, let's go over some ideas just to consider what we can understand about house lord combinations. Now, in Brihat Parashar Hora Shastra, there are the Bhava Yogas. And so if you have this book, I have it here. Of course, it's not that fancy. It's a brown book. And the one I have happens to be Brihat Parashar Hora Shastra from Girish Chand Sharma. It's a good book. There are two volumes of it. But in these books, there are the Bhava Yogas. So you want to look at the Bhava Yogas. Also, in the next book, The Art and Science of Vedic Astrology, Volume 2, that I'm working on, the Bhava Yogas will be in there, as well as some description of these Bhava Yogas. And the reason I'm doing that in particular, giving more of a description or trying to flesh them out a little bit more, is because some of these Bhava Yogas are very concise and cryptic. And oftentimes they don't always equate to our modern culture or our modern times. For example, if we consider the Bhava Yoga of the 2nd lord and the 3rd, well, what Parashar says is that when the wealth lord, again, the 2nd house, wealth, the 2nd lord, the wealth lord, in brother, the brother is the 3rd house, one born is courageous, intelligent, virtuous, lustful, and eagerly desiring if mixed with a Shubha. Mixed with a Papa, blaming divinity. Well, a Shubha is a benefic planet. A Papa is a malefic planet. So anyway, that Bhava Yoga in its entirety is wealth lord in brother. One born is courageous, lustful, virtuous, eagerly desiring if mixed with a Shubha. Mixed with a Papa, blaming divinity. So we can extrapolate from that. Let's just take the idea of mixed with a Papa. So if a Papa is involved or a malefic planet is involved, well, then one blames divinity. And you might know people like that, people who blame the gods or their fate instead of being courageous and virtuous and doing what they can in this life as best they can. So that would be if it's with a Papa. If it's with a Shubha or a benefic planet, one can be virtuous, can be intelligent, which means they can make things happen or act in an intelligent manner, and they can be courageous. So we need to have some contemplation on these particular combinations. Now, let's consider just going back to our previous talks on the houses. So if we remember, the second house represents wealth, represents our sense of providing for ourselves, represents early childhood. And the third house deals with adventure, deals with courage, deals with siblings, our peers, our teammates. Well, we have to kind of combine these two things. So whenever you get the second and the third lord together, either the second and the third lord together, or the second lord in the third house, well, what are some positive influences you can expect? Well, maybe one will earn money through advertising or marketing, sales, promotion. One may be good with their hands or arms, artistic expression with the hands and the arms, good technical skills, because these are all represented by the third house. A person can have a good sense of design and form, may work well with their teammates. One can be enthusiastic about earning their resources. The third house is often a house that deals with enthusiasm. Second house deals with resources, so you can be enthusiastic about it. A person can have skills in communication, because the third house deals with skills, and second house is said to deal with the voice, so skills with the voice and a dynamic speaker. So how did we come to this? Well, I took the information about the second house and considered how it influences third house affairs. And so it's just like taking an equation, A plus B equals this. And when we start to learn to think in this way, we start to understand how the chart gives its promise. Now, those are positive influences. There can be negative influences too. And the way I typically figure this out is I look at the dignity of the planet. For example, if we have the second lord in the third and it's in bad dignity, enemy sign, great enemy, debilitation, well, then one may lose money through short distance travels. A person can waste their resources on hobbies and adventures. Third house is hobbies and adventures. Second house is resources. One can waste money trying to improve their skills. Again, third house is skills. Second house is resources. A person could have mediocre talents. A person could try too hard to gain money. They may take money from others. Speech can be aggressive or provoke aggression. And going back to the Parasharbhav Yoga, one can blame their karma or higher powers for bad luck. So again, this is if the planet's in bad dignity. Now, what we have to remember when we're considering these types of things, it's not just the dignity, but we need to consider what is the planet that we're talking about here. So for example, if we have the ruler of the second and the third, and it's Mars, well, Mars can give very concise critical speech. So maybe this person is a critic, or good at giving criticism positively, because it's Mars. If we have Mercury in the third, and it's the second house ruler, that could indicate travels, short distances for work. Why? Because Mercury is a planet that deals with travel and short distances. Mercury is also a planet that deals with research, so a person could earn their resources through research. So again, when you're looking at, for example, if you get the Art and Science of Vedic Astrology 2, and you see these combinations, ruler of the second and the third, ruler of the 10th and the 12th, well, you're going to get a big list of things, and a lot of books do this. But in order to figure out what exactly is going to happen, you don't want to just read through all of the influences, because they're not all going to be applicable to the person that you're talking to. You want to consider the dignity of the planet to figure out if it's a positive or negative influence. You also want to consider what is the planet, whether it's Venus, Mars, Jupiter, the Moon, the Sun, because if you remember, if you go back to previous videos and the qualities of the planets themselves, that helps you narrow the field down. Again, if we use this combination of second lord and the third, and let's pretend that the second lord is the sun. Well, the sun in the third, well, the sun is an inspiring planet. the sun is a natural leader. So this person could use their voice as the second lord, being the sun, to lead and inspire their siblings or their teammates or their peers. So you see how we've added the qualities of the sun to the combinations of the house lords, which allows us to narrow this down a little bit. And this is a key that not a lot of people go into when you read certain books. But you have to put it all together. And this is also the reason why when people ask me questions about, this is my chart, can you describe it to me, particularly on the YouTube channel, I don't go into that because there's so much to look at. A good astrologer will take the time to look at these things, and a good astrologer will be right more often than not. Of course, all astrologers, they're not perfect, and we all make mistakes. But overall, if we start adding together all of these different indications and these different levels, that allows us to be more accurate in our assessment, okay, within the capacity to understand the chart. Let's take one more example. Let's see. Let's consider, how about the ruler of the 10th in the 9th? It's a good example. So the Bhava Yoga, again, if you pick up Brihat Parashara Hora Shastra and you find this Bhava Yoga, we have the 10th Lord. The 10th is the house of royalty, of status. In the 9th, which is the house of fortune, well, now we have, according to Parashara, the Lord of royalty abiding in the fortune. The one born is a king if born from a royal family. Like that, if born in a different family, joined with wealth and children. So this is an interesting thing that Parashara brings up here, because it says the one is born a king if born in a royal family, but like that if born in a different family. And this is a clue that you have to take into consideration the person you're talking to. If they're coming from a royal family, well, then they will be a king. If they're not in a royal family, they will be like a king within that family. Like women can be the matriarch of a family, a man could be a patriarch of the family. So this is a key that we need to pay attention to. And people make big deals about when an astrologer asks to get a little bit of background information first. Well, a responsible astrologer will do that because the background information that you get helps you to understand how the chart's going to work or what the possible potential is of that chart. So Parashara understood this. And again, he brings it up when he says, the one born is a king if born from a royal family. So you have to know that first. But he's like that if born in a different family, although he'll still be joined with wealth and children, etc. So interesting to see that in some of these old works. Now, what are some positive influences? Again, you want to go back and review, what does the 10th house mean? We've already done a talk on this, so go back and review that. What does the 9th house mean, and how can we combine these things? You have to think about these things on your own to get really good at astrology. Well, the 10th house is an angular house, a house of power, a house of status, a house of power, which I just said. So it can show a person who comes from a powerful or well-known family. The 9th house shows how we were raised or the culture that we were raised in. One can gain status due to family. A person can have a career giving counsel or education to others. Now that would be true if Jupiter was the ruler of the 10th in the 9th. So consider that. Remember, we just talked about this. If Jupiter is the ruler of the 10th and the 9th, which deals with counsel and educating others, well, that's when you're going to more than likely look towards having a career in counseling and education. If the sun was the ruler of the 10th and the 9th, well, that would show a person coming from a powerful or well-known family, because the sun deals with power and status itself. That's the natural quality of this. Also, the sun can carry on the legacy of the father. 10th and the 9th carrying on the legacy of the father. The 10th can typically, the 10th and the 9th can typically give career that is fortunate with ample opportunities. So if you know anyone who just seems to get all the opportunities and things seem to work out very well for them, they don't have to struggle too much, this combination can be involved. They can be an inspiring figure, an important person within their culture, because the 9th house deals with culture. Now, those are the positive influences, and that's if these planets are in good dignity. Now let's consider negative influences. Well, negative influences. A person can be too focused on ideals. They can be too focused on higher principles, philosophy, or religion, and they become almost fundamentalist about it, or fanatical, that's the better word. A person may sabotage their career by putting too much energy towards education. You might know someone who they get so caught up in education that they don't pay attention to their career. They're lifelong students. One's status or fame hurts family. Again, 10th Lord, status and fame and bad dignity in the 9th, which is the culture and the family. It will hurt the culture of that family. So when you have someone who, the person is ashamed, it causes shame to their family or shame to their culture. Followings when Dharma and inspiration, that's 9th house, Dharma and inspiration, can suffer due to the pursuit of status and prestige. Again, this is if the 10th Lord is in bad dignity in the 9th. Where religion or philosophy may not be accepted by one's government or culture. You might know people who they act in such a way that their culture doesn't accept them. And their religion may be just fine for them, or their family doesn't accept them. Again, 10th Lord in bad dignity in the 9th. So these are ways that you can start to think about planetary combinations. And you want to go through every house and every possible planetary combination and think about it in this way. And this will be covered in the Art and Science of Vedic Astrology Volume 2. It is covered in the step-by-step MP3 download course available at AshevilleVedicAstrology.com, which I believe is an 18-hour course, if I remember how long that took. And this is what we've just talked about. This is part of the manual. So start thinking about it on your own. That way you get it in your head. But if you need assistance, get the book when it finally comes out, or consider the MP3 class, the step-by-step astrology class. All right, take care, and we'll be in touch soon.